Hello everyone, welcome to our 18th episode of Girls Tech Talk. And in this episode, we are going to talk about one of the very interesting topic, which is platform locking or vendor locking. And in this, we are going to talk about what exactly vendor locking means and what exactly you are going to find in when you are developing software, what all things are there which you should be keeping in your mind, what are effects of platform logging in your application, and how you should be designing your application while writing it, what all things you should consider while writing it or architecting it, so that you should not stuck in such situation. So the first thing which I want to talk about, what exactly this means, what exactly this platform locking means. So platform locking or vendor locking is something which is related to your application when you want to choose something else, like for a platform which in which your application is there right now, or you are using a third party vendors for hosting your platform, or kind of using some kind of maybe database storage, whatever. And now due to some reason you want to move from the existing vendor to another vendor, but due to the hard dependency on the that vendor or the way your application is written or hosted, you are not able to do so. There can be various reasons, like be it the code is written in such a way that it is kind of hard dependent, or it's the time it is going to take to migrate to the next vendor is not kind of practical, or it can be like there are effort wise it's not practical. So there can be several things, but eventually it's like you are stuck with the current one. So that is what is called as platform locking. You are kind of stuck with your existing one. And there are kind of if I say how these works, so vendors are also doing their own business, right? So they will try to make it in such a way that when you are taking it, maybe it will, you will think that yeah, it's all okay, but eventually after some years you'll find that you are kind of stuck. So a real time example is if you are using Apple products, if you're using iPhone or something. I know last time we have given a good part of Apple phones, but in this I can give you one kind of drawbacks. So it's like when you're using Apple iPhones or whatever iPods or whatsoever, you are kind of stuck with their iTunes stores. If you suppose you want to just change your ringtone in Android phones, all you can do is you can download that MP3 and you can just set it as a ringtone, right? But in iPhones, you have to go to the iTunes store, you have to purchase it from there, and then only you can use it as your ringtone. So it's a kind of lock-in. You are stuck with their provided application. So that is a kind of real-time example, and we get the same situations in software also. Shrima, if you can give us more insight how it works, what are all our cons of this, and how we should take care of such situations.
Thank you, Tara. So if you see like in our what slide is like what we think about platform locking. So I will give you a background of the thought process that we are having. So if you see the lot of projects we are working now, it's like cloud migration. And when we are going for cloud migration or transforming the industry application to cloud, so if it is a very we can go with lift and shift, means we can bundle our application and then host it in cloud. Then it is a kind of sweet approach. There are challenges, but still it is sweet. But when we are go for refactoring, like when we try to we see like the applications are written on, for example, .NET Core 1.1, and then we have to have it on Windows Server 2016, or maybe the updated Windows Server I have to host it. Then the challenges is like then the challenges we go for, like we have to first understand the code base, and then gradually go for .NET 1.2 to later versions, do
Yeah.
an upgrade. It's just not only the technical consideration or understanding the code, it is also kind of time and cost. I means kind of effort we are giving just to have that migration and the project and the product should work as it is.
Mm.
So when we designing it from the scratch or from the new, this is a kind of concept we have to think about. Like, so when I say like scope of work, is it a kind of data? Is it a kind of application? Or it's a kind of monitoring or automations we are building in some systems? So if it isn't data, like, we are trying to select one database server and we want to do some data manipulation, then one of the questions that we should have and we should always do in comparisons, how frequently we can have a backup of the database that we would be selecting or the product we would be selecting, and can I host it to any other cloud or the cloud that I want to have in future, can we do that? So if we have those questions ready, then it is easy for us to have our modernization journey onwards. And if we are selecting any applications, for example, we are building some custom application or we are hosting some application, kind of SaaS application, then how effectively we can bundle that application and host it to any other clouds. So if we have answers to those questions, it's easy for us. And in terms of like building any automations or building any monitoring or logging activity of our existing application, so
Yeah.
are we building something very dependent on that system? For example, this I am building some monitoring system, or it is going to work only for Azure Monitor, and I don't know like how it works for if we are going to bring some another application, then I have to do some customization. So that's a kind of I would not say like it's a sustainable approach. It's like software development is not just we are developing it for one time, and we have to also take care of it. So if we have those questions already asked, like when we are designing it, like are we, so we should understand, from that perspective, like what is the scope and how I am defining the boundary of it.
Yeah.
And the
I,
next,
I would like to give example in this when you said monitoring and logging. So if I say like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, when we started using function apps or logic apps and or web apps,
yeah,
for an example, like where as your developers, we always thought in the way, okay, it will go to app as your app insight, and always we used app insight for logging and log analytics workspace for looking into it. But now it's more like we should use open telemetry for logging and monitoring. So that's the way of thinking, from moving ourselves from the hard dependency on those Azure logging and monitoring to the open way of doing logging and monitoring. So this is something which also comes like gradually from a developer's perspective also, but that is there, yeah. So that is one thing
yeah.
which I learned with time, yeah.
Yeah, I really like that concept. Like it's a kind of strategy. Like I don't want to depend on a particular vendor. I want to have some control over my data. I want to have some control over my technology. So next of our slide is like, what should be the recurring effect for choosing in product. So we should think about like, when we are selecting something, so does it lead to vendor locking? So when I say like vendor locking, so what type of product is it? Is it an CRM product or some kind of ERP or applications that the company is dependent on, and we don't know like how we don't know how we are going to host the application or how we are going to adopt the application, and then we stuck ourselves with that design. So we should think through that, like what we should think through the all those concepts of selecting that product, like just because we have an Azure, AWS or GCP cloud does not mean like we cannot do a comparison to each other and bring the best of the best of them, like what is needed for us, and we have to do such comparison and check like how can we make ourselves the best of all of the cloud services available. So it's a kind of competitive field in the clouds, and like there are a lot of services, but we should think about like it's not it's a business altogether, so we should think about of our product in that perspective and select only what is needed. If some services is better from other cloud, we should think about how can I host it and how can I scale it uh, as our business need. So and last thing, what should I consider to design and sustainable solution? So in terms of platform locking, we should always think how can I do the data migration, or how can we think about the application migration? What are the comparison we have to do in terms of we need to scale the application, and if we have to build some monitoring or automation on our system, then what are the things we have to consider? So these are some basics questions we think about when we design, when we think about that platform locking factor of application development. It's, as I say, just not just development, it's also the maintenance also comes in terms of IT industry. And Tara, if you can have any thoughts that I might have missed.
I think what you said or suggested is more from the architectural design perspective, what things we should be keeping in our mind while designing an application. From developers perspective, I like to add that whenever you are doing the code, whenever you are doing the development, just don't restrict yourself till your application functionalities, or like, for an example, you are writing a feature in your application and there are NuGet packages which you are using. Just try to look into like whether it is just supporting, for example, if your application is a .NET application, try to look into whether it's supporting Linux platform as well or not. Is it somehow dependent on Windows platform? I'm telling this because it's a kind of we are having in our own experiences. So there are lots of packages or lots of code which we use, or maybe third-party licensed packages also which we use, which has kind of dependency on certain platform, or which has kind of dependency on certain things, due to which you actually have to use that specific product or that specific platform. So at the time of development also, you can take wise decisions as a coder, as a developer, and you can make it kind of vendor agnostic or platform agnostic. Similarly goes for DevOps people also. DevOps people also can write maybe when you are for an example, Terraform is why this is much popular with respect to, if I say, arm or biceps, because Terraform is kind of vendor agnostic. So that's why it like popular option of doing infrastructure provisioning automation, right? Similarly, when you are creating CI/CD pipelines, try to use something which is kind of vendor agnostic. Like now GitOps is coming into picture, is making itself way ahead than Azure DevOps pipeline, or maybe Jenkins or whatever. Like if you are trying to use if you're trying to create something, just think of how you can make it platform independent, so that in future, if the business want to move from one product to another product, it's easier for them to migrate. The one of the basic challenge which we have is like this, which is tightly coupled into the existing platform and vendor. So as a developer also, you can come up with a lots of wise decisions. So that's all I wanted to add. And maybe in future we can come up with exact pointers which we have taken, not exactly I would say is a standard, but maybe which Shrima has taken in her experiences, and which I have taken in my experiences, and maybe we can share that as a pointers which will help you out for your projects as well and for your migration as well. So that's it for today's session. Hope you like it. Hope you'll get something from this session. And happy learning and happy weekend. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Bye.